Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a Tomlin Tuesday. Bob Pompiani soon to be joined by Missy Matthews here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. The Steelers getting ready for a big game against the Baltimore Ravens. It's coming at you on Sunday at 1 o'clock, KDKA, and boy, it's the first of two. Late in the season, these two teams will meet. Baltimore's coming off a tough win, a 1-point win against Denver, 10-9. And in that game, it was Lamar Jackson out with injury. Of course, they brought in Tyler Huntley. As far as the Steelers are concerned, another road win. That's 2 in a row. They'll come home at 5-7, creeping into the picture while the Ravens are 8-4 tied with the Bengals. We're going to hear from Mike Tomlin right now. Let's go upstairs for Mike Tomlin's Tuesday press conference.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll summarize our last performance. Like I said after the game, just really happy for the guys. Man, we had an opportunity to stack a victory, and that's something that we hadn't done. And so that's a significant step. Hopefully it's a springboard for us as we move forward. Absolutely, we need it to be. The sand is running through the hourglass in terms of us stating the case for ourselves. We recognize that. We've recognized that for some time now, and that's why we've worked with the urgency that we've worked with for some time, just trying to get back into conversations and find a level of consistency that produces wins on a consistent basis. 2 consecutive road wins is significant as well. If you're going to be a team in this thing, you got to make venue and game location a non-factor in terms of performance. And so there are a lot of positives to draw from that. We can't wear our hands out, patting ourselves on the back. Obviously, we got the Baltimore Ravens coming in this week. We got 5 or so left. 3 of those are divisional games. And so, boy, there's a lot of weight on them. There's a lot of weight on this one. And so that's why we're excited about the week of work in front of us from a preparation standpoint. Still staying in line in terms of summarizing the game. I thought we did a good job of taking care of the ball. I think largely we've done a better job of taking care of the ball offensively. I think that allows us to maintain possession of it. It allows us to, control the game from a time of possession standpoint. I think our line is doing a good job, increasingly so, with each passing week. But we've talked often about that, the general improvement, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's, the runners, whether it's Kenny himself individually. I think it's a reasonable thing to expect guys to continually get better with each opportunity, particularly when you're young or you don't have an extended resume as an individual or as a collective. I just think the upward swing or the trajectory of where we are is one that we expect and one that we expect to continue. Provided, obviously, we're positioning them appropriately, we're working in the right areas, and we're working hard enough, and that's something that I'm responsible for and something that we spend an awful lot of time framing and talking about as we construct quality days. When you're working with a young group, you oftentimes talk about things in that way. Forget Sunday. We got to have a quality Wednesday in an effort to get this train out of the station, and then we'll worry about Thursday when we get to it. And so that's just the mindset in which we've been working. I also was pleased with the playmaking down the stretch. I just think December football, that's a signature of December football. The NFL is comprised of one-score games, and so oftentimes your ability to make plays down the stretch will determine the outcome of games. You saw that in Monday Night Football. What's going to happen in the last few possessions of the game? I like what we did in the waning moments of the game in all 3 phases. The offense possessed the ball, although we didn't possess the ball in totality and get all the way out of the stadium. I thought we did a nice job gaining the first down or 2, minimizing their ability to move it at the end. Can't say enough about Presley and the special teams group down in that ball and putting them on the long field, and then obviously the defense closing it out. That's what you have to do in December. That's what you have to do as the road gets narrow. That's just a signature ball, and so we better develop an appetite for that. Anybody that's committed to winning here in December better develop an appetite for that. And so hopefully we use those lessons learned as we move forward and continue to get better and grow. Better define our divisional labor, better understand our roles within this thing, and more consistently engineer a formula that produces victory. That's what each week's challenge provides us. Obviously, the people that we play, the venue, and all those things, kind of weather conditions and all those things factor in. But the things that are within our control, and that's how I talk when I talk to a young group, man. It's about our prep, our understanding, our division of labor, how we're growing as units and a collective. Now to Baltimore, man, we've been in, circumstances like this with Baltimore a bunch. It's great for the fans, man. It's great to be a part of. It's humbling to be a part of. It takes two to tango. They're a great dance partner. Collectively, man, we've produced some quality moments for football lovers, and it's just cool to be a part of something like that. But you show your respect for being a part of something like that with how you prepare and position yourself to do the things that you need to do. We're highly familiar with them. They're highly familiar with us. Oftentimes it comes down to one-score games and weighty moments and having a certain amount of resolve. I think oftentimes the group that doesn't blink, the group that absorbs negativity or adversity better and is able to move on is oftentimes the group that's positioned to win. I know we'll proceed through our prep week with that understanding, knowing that we're going to make some plays, they're going to make some plays. The history of the series kind of tells us that. The gravity of the contest within the history of the series usually kind of tell you that. It brings out the best in competitors, and it's our job, like I'm sure it's the Ravens' job to, put the ball in the hands of competitors and playmakers in those weighty moments and when it really gets thick and try to create a little history. I know, that's how some of these games have unfolded. And so it's exciting for the new guy, the young guy, to really get a sense of what this is about. It's my job and the job of guys that's been a part of it to kind of educate them because, man, you don't want to be figuring it out in stadium. The intensity level is going to be what it's going to be. And so, boy, you got to come prepared for it. You can't warm up to it. Defensively, they got some changes, in particularly from a coordinator standpoint. Wink's no longer there. McDonald is. But, boy, when you turn the tape on, you see Ravens defense. And they got continuity there that kind of is reflective of the 15 years that Harbs has been there. And maybe that doesn't necessarily matter who the coordinator is. I just think they got a mode of operation or a business model in terms of how they play. And oftentimes I think that's aided by, looking in-house or people that have experience within their system of ball. They've gone from Ryan to Wink and now to McDonald, all of which obviously know what Ravens defense is about and how they get down and are able to produce that. I see that. I see some things that are very much Ravens D, but I also see some things that are a little bit different, and that's to be expected when you're dealing with a new coordinator. We spend a lot of time talking about what's different. We kind of know what's the same. From a schematic standpoint, they got quality players. I think you can say the same thing about the quality players. No disrespect to Humphrey, man. We know Marlon is a grown man, man. Marlon's going to be significant in terms of the outcome of this game, but we've been in the stadium with Marlon a bunch. We better be talking about, new guys like Smith at the linebacker level or Pierre Paul and guys like that, man, that are kind of new to the equation and what differences they might bring. So that's where our time is being spent right now as we hone in on a plan. On the offensive side of the ball, man, Greg Roman schematically, man, produces some challenges. We know it. We've been exposed to it. We've been in the stadium with Hundley before. To be quite honest with you, they're one of the few teams that have major quarterback mobility that have done a consistent job of making sure that mobility isn't lost when their starter goes down. Whether it's Hundley or Huntley or McSorley even in the last, or RG3, you think about the last 4 or 5 years, man, they've always got quality backups that are capable of delivering the schematics that they choose to employ. Quarterback mobility is going to be an issue in this game regardless of who's playing. We better be sharp in that area. We better minimize that component of play. It's a signature of the Ravens attack. Obviously, Andrews is going to be significant regardless of who's playing quarterback. His ability to dominate the game down the field, it goes beyond his position. He's a number one receiver in the National Football League in the ways that Kelsey's a number one receiver. Tight end is you're boxing him in, describing him as a tight end. We better work to to minimize his impact on the game. They use a stable of backs. They have used a stable of backs for a long time. It makes it tough for them it makes it tough for opponents to pinpoint, their agenda. They keep guys fresh. They run a bunch of fresh bodies at you. That's challenging. The nature in which they play, they possess the ball. They're capable of wearing defenses down. They challenge you to win possession downs. If you don't, you could die on the vine. But also, if you don't win possession downs, you could lose the field position battle. And if you lose field position battle against Baltimore, you're going to lose because they got a guy named Tucker. And all you got to do is get the ball anywhere around midfield, and he's comfortably within scoring territory. He needs no endorsement from me. His resume reflects that. And so those are some of the known issues and things that has our attention as we prepare for this opportunity. And I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, did you injuries?
Oh, I'm sorry. Chooks went down in game with a shoulder. That may affect him at the early portions of the week. He was able to come back in and finish the game. We'll see where those roads lead. And then guys that were carrying bumps and bruises into play who were somehow limited during the course of last week's work but then were able to play, you just don't want to assume that that's behind them. I'm prepared for them maybe to be affected somewhere at the early portions of the week, but not, as we lean in on game time. Guys like TJ, Larry Ogunjobi, guys that kind of were partial participants at various forms of various times last week may be slowed as we come together and get this train out of the station. But I don't focus my energies there. I focus my energies on those that are working, their growth and development. You give a guy like Cam Hayward a day off this time of year in December, man, he's in his 30s. It's a great day for a guy like DeMarvin Leal to grow and to play and take the type of steps that we need him to take in terms of continuing to get better and being a positive contributor to our efforts. And so we'll see where the week leads, but I don't have anything that's jumping out at me right now that might be a major issue toward the end of the week. And then we got some guys that might be eligible to come off of IR, Boswell, Will Jackson. We'll see where those roads lead. Not ready to discuss those guys or the potential inclusion of those guys or what the division of labor might look like. Let's see what the work looks like before we start going too far, and keep our energies focused on the guys that we know could be available to us as we stand here right now.
Ribs primarily for TJ at this point that are the biggest hurdle for him?
Yeah, I guess you could describe it as that, yes.
Mike, what has Matt Wright been able to do for you here, besides beyond the consistency, of course?
Man, that's all I care about. Put the ball through the uprights. I'm not a technical teacher as it pertains to field goal kicking. I'm responsible for everything, but I don't have direct experience. I don't know how to kick. I'm not very good at it. I appreciate the ball going through the upright.
Mike, when you talk about the putting the game away in December like you did the other day, the punt and the interception, what can the team, what can the guys learn from that?
Just success in doing. I think you grow in understanding of what you're capable of individually and collectively when you have success. It's a setback, and there's more hurdles when you don't. And so it's good, not only in terms of the outcome of that game, but just to build as we move forward and understanding that we are capable and how it has to look, that plays got to come from a multitude of places and a multitude of units in an effort to close the game out.
Mike, both Levi and Cam Sutton both have double-digit pass defenses as a coach, former secondary coach. What does that stat mean to you?
Man, they both have really good above the neck games. They do. When you're good above the neck, there's a feel, there's an anticipation, and oftentimes that feel or anticipation is required to do anything other than tackle the catch. In the National Football League, everybody's varsity. All things being equal, you got good route running, you got accurate throws, you got good coverage. Usually what you have is defenders tackling the catch. And so when it gets beyond that from a defender standpoint, there's some anticipation or intuition or knowledge there that gives them the edge to go beyond that. And so when you see guys like those two with double-digit PBUs, it probably speaks more than anything that they got a certain amount of exposure, awareness, and preparedness.
Mike, how do you attribute to better third down conversion rate over the last couple of weeks, too?
Just continually working and getting better. And I'm not going to say we're in better third down circumstances because we've worked extremely hard to be in good third down circumstances all year. Maybe we've minimized some of the bad ones, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 22. You minimize penalties, you stay out of those, and you never really have a realistic opportunity to convert some of those unless there's defensive negligence. And I think we probably minimized that. But I hadn't analyzed it in an analytical way. We're just working right now and trying to minimize long yardage circumstances and trying to win manageable ones more consistently.
Mike, having that experience last year of playing Huntley in the last game of the season, what did you learn about him then, and have you seen any growth?
I tell you, one thing I know and learned is that I look at it from his perspective. That's a guy that had an opportunity to get an extended amount of play last year. When you don't have a long playing resume and you go into an offseason, it's somewhat mystical the areas of your game that you need to work on. I would imagine last year's experience really narrowed his focus as he went into the offseason. He was able to identify tangible areas of his game that he needed to improve, and I'm sure that they were as well. And so we're not going to seek comfort or find comfort in the fact that we've been in the stadium with him before. Last year's exposure for him, probably more than anything, just tells us we better be prepared for a guy that's significantly better. When you've played and you've had experience and you're no longer speculating, he's not speculating what it's like to be in the stadium against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has that experience in his hip pocket. And so we better assume that he's going to be significantly better. In the same ways that we're not surprised that Kenny's getting better with each opportunity. Every week you guys ask me how and why Kenny's getting better. Exposure. And I could say the same thing about their quarterback play and the experience that he gained from a year ago. And so that's our mentality. We have been in the stadium with them, but we're not finding comfort in that. We're preparing to see a much better guy, a more experienced guy, a guy that's learned from that exposure.
Mike, in 3 of the last 4 seasons, you guys have made late pushes around this time of year after slower starts. Just what is it about this team that allows them to make these pushes in December?
I don't care about other seasons. I'm focused on this one. And this group, they come to work every day. They tune out the outside noise. They're not broken down by negativity and elevated music. They just come to work every day, and that needs to continue.
Mike, when you look at all of the components of development of younger players, outside of Kenny, but all of your younger players, how much does winning football games play a role into that development?
Their development also produces the wins, and so it's the chicken or the egg. We don't grade on the curve. Oftentimes when I'm asked about Kenny, I talk about his progression and the rate of his progression, but I always include in that statement, we're not grading on the curve. We expect him to produce wins while this development is happening. And it's the same thing for all those guys. They're growing in the right ways because of the victories. Their play is producing the victories. And so, let's keep it going.
Mike, in that same vein, Pat Freiermuth really seems to be coming into his own. Has he made any changes, or is that really just getting more comfortable?
Pat's a second-year guy. It's reasonable to expect those guys to make a significant jump. He had a lot of success in his first year. It made us really optimistic about the prospects of this year. And I think it's just kind of coming to fruition. I don't think any of us are surprised by it. And at the top of the list, Pat Freiermuth.
Out of the bye, you spent a lot of time talking to us about self-scouting as an opportunity to self-scout. Have you had that availability? Have you been able to do that sort of self-scouting as it relates to where you guys have been coming out of the locker room in third quarters in recent weeks?
No, sometimes it's just the nature of the game. Like in Indy, they got the big kickoff return and produced a touchdown, and that produced the ebb and flow that was momentum that they were able to ride for a while until we could get it turned. In this past game, Atlanta got the ball to start the second half, and they did a great job of winning the line of scrimmage and possessing the ball. I think we had one possession in the third quarter. We didn't do anything with it, and then they possessed it again. And so it was just about having an opportunity to have the ball in that instance. And oftentimes, discussions such as you mentioned, production, particularly when you're looking at a small window, a half a play, or things of that nature, there's often things that other variables that weigh into it beyond the obvious. And so that's why sometimes I don't answer questions directly when you ask me things of that nature. It's it's a multitude of variables, sometimes having nothing to do with the people that you ask about.
Mike, you get the sense that after winning 2 in a row, especially on the road, that this team is beginning to believe in itself and believe in one another?
I don't know that I questioned that belief prior to that. There was frustration in terms of us not getting the job done, but I don't know that I questioned belief in oneself from a collective standpoint.
Mike, there was frustration with George Pickens. What do you tell him about wanting more targets?
I'd rather say woe than sick 'em. I want a guy that wants to be a significant part of what it is that we do. Now, the appropriate and professional and mature way to express that, we're growing and working on, and we will continue. But that spirit, that competitive spirit, the guy that wants the ball, no, I want that guy. You know, I would imagine TJ wants to lay the quarterback down more. We got competitors. This is professional football. These guys know that they have to deliver. And so for a guy that wants to do that, I'm not going to make that a negative, no matter how silly I think the commentary is or people talking about him expressing frustrations and stuff and trying to make it a negative storyline. I laugh at that. Again, that's one of the reasons why we're continually progressing, because we're capable of tuning that BS out.
Mike, I know you had a chance to chat with Cam about Connor's touchdown, the magnitude, visiting their dad's grave earlier that day. Have you had a chance to talk to Connor?
I have not. I don't talk to Connor. I talk to Cam.
Along those lines, he's nominated for Walter Payton Man of the Year. I know you wore that shirt for him earlier this year. I know you like to say he doesn't need an endorsement, but what would you say about why he should win that award?
Here's the thing for me, just the totality. I know it's an award that acknowledges the work that's done in 2022, but much like his playing career, man, his work in the community, whether it's Pittsburgh or Atlanta where he's from or Columbus where he went to school or any community that he cares about, this guy contributes in a positive way in the way that he has as a player. The totality of his resume in that area is indisputable, like the totality of his resume as a player. It's over a decade of service. And so that's why I feel like he needs no endorsement from me. How he lives his life and how he conducts himself, how he cares about people and utilizes his platform in a positive way is all the endorsement that he needs.
Mike, in the way that you were excited at the beginning of training camp, you said like you were ready to boil water, put your mouthpiece in there. What is it about December football that it seems like you get rejuvenated or get another boost, level up?
Man, as the road gets narrow, it makes you or it breaks you. You feel that pressure or you apply that pressure. It's my preference to apply it. And it's my job to make sure our team shares that sentiment.
You were talking about the history of Steelers-Ravens a little bit. I think you used the phrase, for the young guys especially, you can't warm up to it in game, you have to know about it. Part of that history seems to be surprisingly about backup quarterbacks who have come in and done a lot of good things. Whether on your end, Charlie, Dennis got you to overtime once when their deck was stacked against you. They had Mallet, they've had other guys come in. Like, have you, especially for the young guys, maybe the rookies who weren't around for Huntley last year, is this a chance to remind them through that lens?
I don't necessarily approach it in that way. I just think that we always talk about one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. And we, quite frankly, don't view the quarterback position any differently in terms of our expectations, man. If we're playing with a backup quarterback, how we win might be different in terms of how we engineer it, but the expectation remains the same. It's a mindset, and I know it's a mindset that Harbs and that group has over there. And so we just don't spend a lot of time formally talking about what quarterback's playing and its impact. We just assume that they're going to come to play, just like we would come to play regardless of who we had at quarterback, as you mentioned. That's football. That's football at the highest level.
Mike, do you think this team has turned the corner?
Stay tuned.
Mike, we hear a lot from some of the offensive rookies, Kenny, George, Connor, about the bond that they have with each other. How do you kind of see that continuing to grow, and what does that do for you guys offensively?
Every rookie class has a bond. They in the offseason, when you bring them together, you herd them in vans, you house them in the same hotels, they eat together. At training camp, they live together. They figure things out together. Life skills on Tuesday. The only thing that's probably different about this group is they're probably getting an opportunity to contribute and play more in the midst of it. But you can say the same thing about Naj and Muth and those guys from a year ago. There's always a unity within a draft class, man. Not only because of the challenges that they face together, but just the informal time. They spend time together. They often live in the same communities and the same, this life for them. There's a brotherhood there.
Mike, I know you guys take it a week at a time, obviously, but Najee said after the game, like, you guys are in the business of winning, you're in the business of making the playoffs. How much is that playoff discussion something that you guys continue throughout the season, especially now?
Man, that's every week of our lives, but we frame it in that this week is what's important relative to that. It's not a realistic discussion unless we handle business this week. And so that's what I mean when I say each week we're singularly focused. It's not like we don't acknowledge the elephant in the room. There's something that's coming at the end of this thing, and we want to be positioned for it. And so we know what this week means relative to it.
Anything else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Mike Tomlin at his very best today. A lot of drop Tomlinisms. I like that. Missy Matthews is here to discuss, and boy, he has some interesting things to say. I really kind of like the thing about George Pickens because that was a talking point all throughout the week. The fact that he's frustrated, the camera caught him. Sometimes the camera doesn't catch that, and if it doesn't, we don't talk about it or people don't call about it. But the fact is, the woe from Sikkim, I think that's exactly the kind of player he wants. Somebody who's frustrated, he wants the ball, and that's a good thing.
He's, a Georgia Bulldog. His team played the night before in the very same stadium. I'm sure he had lots of family and friends there, wanting to show off for them and to continue the progression we've seen between him and Kenny Pickett. Agree, as Coach said, there's a professional way to express that you would like the ball more in different things, not the way that was caught on camera. But as he said, would rather say woe than Sikkim. And, he even said TJ Watt wants more as well. But
Right.
That's just kind of where they are. And I think we've seen the bond between him and Kenny, so hopefully we see it again on Sunday because it's Ravens week, and as you could tell from Coach, he is amped up for this one.
There's no question about it because both teams right now, the Ravens are battling for a division. The Steelers are trying to battle to get into the playoff picture. We have a lot to talk about with regard to this matchup coming up because there are injury concerns. At this point, you don't know who it's going to be. Lamar Jackson suffered an injury. Tyler Huntley has been good. I mean, when he's come in there to play. Now, the Steelers saw him last year. They picked him off twice in a game they had to win down in Baltimore. So they're familiar with him. Do you think that plays a role in how they prepare for him if he is indeed the quarterback?
I think especially because it was so short ago, just the last game of last season, you can definitely go back. It was a full game. They, what they were doing in terms of their playoff picture at the time, and the Steelers needed to win that game. The Ravens didn't, and the Steelers needed help as well. But I think watching what he was able to do last week against the Broncos, Lamar Jackson was hurt in the first quarter. So it's not like he just came, in the last few minutes of the game and played cleanup. He helped them get that win. It didn't look like it was going to happen, but as is the NFL, crazy things happen every week.
Yeah, 91-yard drive against the Broncos. They needed a touchdown. He got one. Critical game for them to win because it looked like Denver was going to actually go there and win in Baltimore. So the Ravens come into this one 8-4. The Steelers 5-7, but 2 wins in a row. They'll try to make it 3 on Sunday afternoon as these two teams wait until late in the year to play their 2 games. Normally, people prefer maybe one in the beginning, one at the end. They're going to see
December
2,
football.
and it is, and you see how Tomlin likes to talk about it. We're going to take a break, come back, and break down Mike Tomlin's press conference and more as we continue live right here on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms. Don't go away. It is a Tomlin Tuesday.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located on the North Shore. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be a part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the legendary shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Kenny, how does it feel for you to finally get back-to-back wins?
Yeah, it feels great. It feels great. You see all the hard work that everybody puts in, being in the building all week and, to go out here and get back-to-back wins and, feel the momentum a little bit, it feels great.
Was it a big deal on that 2nd and 8 when you got the ball to Johnson late for the first down? Did you want to get him involved, or did it just work out?
It really wasn't just we just wanted to get a completion to move the chains. That was really, we felt good about that play. We had it earlier, kind of worked out similarly. So, it was good to get the ball in his hands, and, he did a great job of getting vertical and getting the first for us.
What was that moment like with Connor whenever you threw the touchdown pass to him? That's his first career touchdown, and apparently he had a moment with Cam as well earlier.
Yeah, man, it was special, and Cam talked to the team before, and I talked to Connor. We were walking out to the tunnel. We said we're going to get the win for his pops today, and for having to go out there and get his first touchdown in this building, I think it's incredibly special. I think it's not a coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. So incredibly proud of him, and really happy we got the win for both those guys.
I heard this a little before your time, but did you learn?
Yeah, man, we do a good job of, they show a lot of clips, the old players that we've had before here, and he's obviously one of the greats that came through. So it's crazy. I wish, Connor, I was trying to get Connor to go to Pitt. We were in the recruiting battle with Michigan State. I was trying to get him, but they edged us out. But glad we're teammates now.
Can you, as much as you want to share, just what kind of things did Cam tell you about his father?
Didn't get into really, a lot of the details. It was just a special game for him. It means a lot to both those guys, and I'm really happy that we were able to get the win.
Anything specific you need to do to change those 3s into 7s?
Yeah, I think connecting on the one to Pat, I got to give him a better ball and put it on him. And then the penalties when we got backed up obviously hurt us in there. So those are two things that stuck out off the bat. I definitely need to put a better pass out there for Pat, and he would have scored there as well.
This place is juiced up. The stadium is on fire. They're enjoying what they're seeing.
Man, as the road gets narrow, it makes you or it breaks you. You feel that pressure or you apply that pressure. It's my preference to apply it. And it's my job to make sure our team shares that sentiment.
Welcome back. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews, and Mike Tomlin talking about December football. He has a pretty good resume on December football.
Yeah, under head coach Mike Tomlin since 2007, the Steelers are 41-25, and those 41 victories, 4th most in the NFL during that span. They played one game of December football, but it was in a dome. I feel like Sunday, the Ravens are in town, the weather's not going to be great. That's what we think of when we think December football.
It still counts. A win's a win.
No,
dome
absolutely.
Or no dome, it's still December, but yeah, it takes on even bigger importance when you got division games, and they're going to have 3 of them here in the next month or so, and those are all going to go a long way in determining what happens in terms of postseason. The one thing the Steelers have done better is managed third downs, and they've been more successful on third downs. Let's hear from Mike Tomlin about, instead of facing 3rd and 10 or 12, it's more like 3rd and 2, and because of that, their numbers have gotten better.
I'm not going to say we're in better third down circumstances because we've worked extremely hard to be in good third down circumstances all year. Maybe we've minimized some of the bad ones, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 22. You minimize penalties, you stay out of those, and you never really have a realistic opportunity to convert some of those unless there's defensive negligence. And I think we probably minimized that. But I hadn't analyze it in an analytical way. We're just working right now and trying to minimize long yardage circumstances and trying to win manageable ones more consistently.
And we saw that in Atlanta where the Steelers went 6 for 12 on third down because of, again, manageable situations. You can open up the playbook versus Atlanta, which was 3 for 10. And I think if you look at that last drive where they thought they had the lead on the touchdown to Patterson, there was a holding call that nullified that. Then they took a false start, and the next thing you know, they're back on their heels, and they missed the opportunity because of penalties.
I think for the Steelers, as you said, they are not turning the ball over. 128 pass attempts for Kenny Pickett, no interceptions, something very different than what we saw prior to the bye week, but also the run game, having 5 consecutive games with over 100 yards rushing. We're seeing different guys mixed in. It's not even just the running backs. We saw Derek Watt just a little bit ago, but running with some of the wide receivers as well. Time of possession earlier in the season, Pompey was not pretty in terms of where that was sitting. That's something that is better, and also having a more balanced offense between run and pass. you can see it's a young group. It didn't look pretty earlier in the season, but they have really reset since the bye week, and we've seen good things from them, and hopefully more to come, especially in the second half, that third quarter. I just so badly want them to be able to score a touchdown, but it did not happen in Atlanta.
So we saw in that video we just saw there, Missy, it's interesting. Kenny Pickett, we often talk to Mike Tomlin about his progression, and what do you see? He's gone through his progressions of reads. We saw the one pass to Freiermuth where he looked right, went left, and didn't miss a beat. The other thing we saw in there is Derek Watt turning into Mr. Short Yardage. I think he's 5 for 5.
5 for 5, yep.
On what, 3rd and 1 or whatever it is, 4th and 1. That's a nice thing, and I thought when they acquired him and signed him here that they would use him more in that situation. That's an evolving role for him.
Yeah, it's great to see even just what he brings to the run game and blocking. You know, he's not one of those guys that you're going to easily get through, but I think it's comfort level as well. You're seeing Pat Freiermuth, a 57-yard catch. For Kenny, I think it's knowing where guys are going to be and trusting them, and then the pass catchers knowing where they should be and trusting that Kenny will get them the ball. So it's, you know, an evolving thing, but it has gotten better in the previous weeks.
Yeah, I think too many times people are looking at statistics and judging performances based on statistics. And while Kenny Pickett's numbers overall don't jump off the page at you in terms of yards, touchdowns, whatever, you can see the development if you watch him game to game, right? You see what he's doing. That indicates progression, and when that happens, normally the other stuff comes with it in time, and I think that's what is the most encouraging thing about the way this offense is playing.
Yeah, I think in the red zone is definitely, they acknowledge it all the time, something they need to improve. It's about 50%. Being able to cash in, especially when you have the lead, giving yourself more of a cushion in the second half, something they have to work on, but as we've seen the baby steps, hopefully that's coming soon.
Run game, though, makes it all possible. We've talked about that the last 5 weeks, and here we are again talking about it. Why? Because this is the 5th straight game where they went over 100 yards as a group, and you know, time of possession. You know, obviously you don't want those drives to end in field goals like they saw in the first half. They got to be touchdowns, and that's the next developmental area, I would imagine. But that was as good as Najee Harris this year that I've seen, dating back to what he did last year. The angry run that we saw, where the stiff arm, he threw down Grant. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you want to see from number 22.
Yeah, as he had said, you know, he's very comfortable in that stadium, played a ton of SEC championships there. It's just something about being on that turf, but he even admitted, I was running angry. One of his offensive linemen said, I wasn't just blocking for Najee, I was blocking for a maniac. He just was in that zone and had that mentality. So it is good to see. It's, you know, as we're saying about Kenny Pickett, it's the same thing with the offensive line, just continuing to gel. We've seen leaps and bounds from them in recent weeks, and that helps the running backs, including Najee, who wasn't where he wanted to be just a few weeks ago.
It's a tough assignment coming up. It's Baltimore. You know they are a run-identified team, and they're going to do it regardless who's in there. We'll talk more about the Ravens in this matchup and how important it is Sunday at Acrisure Stadium when we come back. This is the Mike Tomlin Press Conference Show on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
Game starts at 20, bed slip is empty. I gotta call KG.
KG, what up?
I got nothing for you, Fox.
Oh, come on. Jalen. You want to tell?
Yeah.
Don't call somebody on live TV.
Well, you answered. I have other friends anyway.
Marshawn, Barry.
Listen, I need some tips.
I'm like LA.
LA?
No, Dallas. That's
Dallas.
Dallas not
Dallas?
the best. We gotta get to Miami. How about Detroit? Nah, Barry over there.
You know what? I'm gonna call y'all right back. Vanessa.
I got a tip for you. Always go with your gut.
I like that. Let's go with our gut.
Cam, how does it feel to post back-to-back victories? It took weeks 12 and 13 to do it, but how does it feel to put them together?
Feels good. You know, I think for the past couple of weeks we've been trying to, you know, give her that hump of stacking. You know, hopefully this is one of many more. But you know, you can, when you put together wins both on the road, that's very huge.
Have you said anything to your brother since this touchdown?
I haven't talked to him. If I could share a story, like this morning, me and him went to my dad's grave, and you know, we got to share a moment there. And so I was pretty emotional when you know, he got the touchdown. I don't like to be Mr. Soppy, but like that like really hit me. Luckily, there wasn't a camera on me because I was a mess.
You guys did a really good job kind of stopping the run in the first half. What were they doing in the second half to kind of control the line of scrimmage?
You know, it's it's a different type of team because usually when you get into a game where you go up more than 7 points, they go to throwing the ball. But they stay. You got to give them credit. They stick with their plan. Use pace as a factor. That's something we're going to have to continue to improve on. But it just comes down to tackling, not surrendering touchdowns. I know we surrendered one at the beginning or the end of the third, but getting off the field, only giving up 3 points was critical to us, win this game.
Cam, they didn't run much in the first half. Did you feel like that was because you took that away early, or do you think they just didn't get there?
We took it away early, got off the field. When they were able to convert and they got into hurry-up situations, they had a lot more success. And that's going to be something we have to clean up right away because, if it goes past 3 plays, we got to make sure we stay stout. A couple of times we were short on gaps, didn't tackle well, and they were falling forward a couple of times.
Man, we've been in, circumstances like this with Baltimore a bunch. It's great for the fans, man. It's great to be a part of. It's humbling to be a part of. It takes two to tango. They're a great dance partner. Collectively, man, we've produced some quality moments for football lovers, and it's just cool to be a part of something like that. But you show your respect for being a part of something like that with how you prepare.
It's the football version of Dancing with the Stars. Tomlin and Harbs.
You'd be a great host.
I'd like to do that. A little tango. We could do that and put a little TikTok out there. Actually, that's an interesting way of looking at it. But those two teams know each other very well. These two head coaches have been there for a long time. So I don't think there's any secrets about what they do and how they play it. It comes down to who's more physical at the line of attack.
Yeah, this will be the 32nd meeting between Coach Tomlin and John Harbaugh. Coach Tomlin has the upper hand here, 17-14 against the Ravens during his time as head coach. But it's always one of those games. It comes down to just a few points. It's close. It's never really just easy. And it always means something to both teams, even if it doesn't seem like at 5-7, the Steelers, are where they want to be. But we know how things can change in this division, and who knows what's going to happen with the Bengals and the Browns as well.
When we taped the Mike Tomlin show earlier before the press conference, I reminded him that Chris Wormley is now 4-0 as a Steeler against the Ravens.
You jinxed it.
Oh, don't tell me that. You don't believe in jinxes, do you?
No, I don't.
No. But that's a pretty good thing, and I'm sure Mike Tomlin reminds Chris too.
Funny enough, whenever we were done, I went down the hall and Chris Wormley was walking out of the locker room, and Coach Tomlin did remind him, they did trade you within the division. So we saw some big plays from Wormley previously, especially in that Colts game. So hopefully he's a little more amped up as well to go against the Ravens on Sunday.
But seriously, the guy's been a really good addition to this team, and they had a surplus of guys at that position. You don't see division trades like this. But it's helped the Steelers. I think he's been really good for them in that, substitute role whenever he gets in there.
Yeah, I think the entire defensive line, Larry Ogunjobi, has been fighting through some injuries, but just what we saw from him in the Atlanta game, the tackle for loss and Cam Hayward, you can't say enough good things about him. They've all started to come along. It's good to see DeMarvin Leal is now off IR, and he was back in the game for a little bit on Sunday as well. So it is a good group, and they're being able to stop the run after last season. That was goal number 1 for this season, and not finishing dead last. So good to see.
Well, the other thing that's going to be interesting is actually who is at quarterback. Yesterday, John Harbaugh pretty much said Lamar Jackson's a week to week. He wouldn't rule out this week, but by saying week to week, I mean, you get the feeling that it's going to be Tyler Huntley, who did well late in that game to drive them down the field, 91 yards to get the game-winning score against Denver. Here's Mike Tomlin's take on no matter who's at quarterback for Baltimore this week.
To be quite honest with you, they're one of the few teams that have major quarterback mobility that have done a consistent job of making sure that mobility isn't lost when their starter goes down. Whether it's Huntley or McSorley even in the last, or RG3, you think about the last 4 or 5 years, man, they've always got quality backups that are capable of delivering the schematics that they choose to employ. Quarterback mobility is going to be an issue in this game regardless of who's playing. We better be sharp in that area.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about the quarterbacks. And yeah, number 2 can do a lot of what number 8 does, and that is he can run out of the pocket. He can make plays with his legs, but he's also gotten better right here in this department, I think, over the years. And when you have a tight end like Mark Andrews, you can get better too.
Absolutely. They saw him in that last game. It was a 16-13 overtime win in the rain. It was miserable, but the Steelers did what they needed to do later that night. Everything happened. It's also the quarterback that maybe did not get TJ the record for the most sacks. He obviously tied Michael Strahan, but the Steelers defense was able to make Tyler Huntley's life miserable. 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. So hopefully that's something they can build on. And yes, they are probably going to run the same offense, but Tyler Huntley is not Lamar Jackson and what he's able to do. Luckily for the Steelers, they seem to do a good job at containing Lamar, and we've seen recent success against him when he has played in the past.
And you see he culminated the drive with a quarterback sneak or quarterback shot draw. But the bottom line is he can call his number anytime. Think about their run game. They haven't had J.K. Dobbins. They may get him back. They also have Gus Edwards. He's been around for a long time. They've added Kenyon Drake. So they don't seem to miss a beat. They'll stick to their game plan regardless of who's in the roster and who's on the team that day.
Yeah, the consistency, as Coach said, they even changed defensive coordinators, but it's still the same Ravens defense. There's little changes here and there, but that goes for their offense. You built a team around and an offense around Lamar Jackson, and as you mentioned, Mark Andrews, one of those guys that is a safety blanket for any quarterback.
All right, when we come back, there are other components about this matchup that are intriguing. Special teams, we talk about it every week, but this week it's even more so because of Justin Tucker. He's one of the best in the game, probably headed to Canton. We'll talk about what they have to do to stop that from happening and more as we continue right here with the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms. Don't go away.
Could your favorite casino app be even better and faster than ever? You bet. Because the all-new BetParx app has been built around what you really want. With easier sign-up, faster withdrawals, and all the slots and table games you love. Plus, make your first deposit and get a 100% bonus match up to $750. And 500 free spins. So, are all of your favorite games just a tap away? You bet. BetParx.
Were you the first option on that touchdown? Can you talk about the play a little bit?
I think, he's going to pick a side depending on if it's zone or man. And they happened to be too high, and I split the safeties, and it ended up working out. We rep that play a lot at practice with all of us.
You guys had the offense going in the first half, but in the second half it seemed like it was a similar story. What happens in the third quarter, you think, that allows it to slow down a little bit?
Honestly, I think we ran the ball well all game, not just in the first half. But, when we get down in the red zone, we just got to capitalize. That's something that, happened last week, and we talked about that at halftime, and, it ended up happening. Coach said that he wanted to walk out of here and not crawl. But, a win is a win, and, we're happy, and, we're going to go back to work tomorrow.
When you get a player like Claypool gone, obviously it's going to open up more opportunities for me in the middle of the field. I'm happy with what I'm getting so far, and you just got to keep making plays.
It seems like you're starting to develop a really good connection with Pickett in key moments.
Yeah.
Your first 3 catches were on third down. Just what's gone into that connection, and especially being that reliable target in key situations?
Yeah, I just know where we're going to be, and he has trust in me, and I've trust in him, and he knows what kind of where I'm going to be, and just a feel thing. And I'm excited for that growing opportunity for us.
How does it feel to finally get back-to-back wins?
It was great. Early in the week, we talked about stacking wings, and it feels good to finally stack them, and it's going to be big going into the Baltimore next week.
Is the complexion of the season starting to change at all for you, or not yet?
You said what?
After these back-to-back wins, is the complexion of the season and the possibilities starting to change for you, or not yet?
We just got to keep winning.
Forgot what I wanted to ask. Out there?
Huh?
Did it almost seem like a home game out there?
Yeah, that was crazy. Truthfully, if there was no Steelers fans there would be no one in the stands. But yeah, it was cool. It was great seeing Steelers. Steelers Nation always comes out, and the road games are always like home games for us, and it was really appreciative of them.
Why have you guys started so fast offensively the last 3 games, and was it important to take it into the second half this time?
Yeah, it was big time. Credit the O-line. They've been moving people off the ball, awesome, and continue to run the ball. It opens up more things downfield, and that's what we continue to do. That's our winning formula.
For over 30 years, Steelers Digest has been delivering black and gold news to your doorstep. Photography, game recaps, opinion, and statistics presented in a colorful, easy-to-read format. Don't miss another issue. Subscribe today at Steelers-Digest.com.
But also, if you don't win possession downs, you can lose the field position battle. And if you lose field position battle against Baltimore, you're going to lose because they got a guy named Tucker. And all you got to do is get the ball anywhere around midfield, and he's comfortably within scoring territory. He needs no endorsement from me. His resume reflects that. And so those are some of the known issues and things that has our attention as we prepare for this opportunity.
And on that resume is also a 66-yard field goal. It was indoors at the time, but still, the guy, I think that's a valid point. If you give him the field position, even if they don't score touchdowns, they are going to get points because he just doesn't miss. You know, last week I thought the Steelers missed. He did a really good job of not even kicking to Cordero Patterson. This is a guy who was a significant part of Atlanta, and they did a good job, Matthew Wright specifically, kicking it away from him. I thought at one point they'd do one of those muddle huddle things where you have two guys in the middle and you're not sure who's going to go where, just to break it up. They didn't do that. The Steelers won that special teams battle.
Yeah, especially after the Colts, they definitely needed to regroup and bring their A game to Atlanta. But I think in terms of Matthew Wright, he started off a little shaky in his first appearance after Chris Boswell was placed on IR, but then 10 straight field goals. Coach Tomlin said he gave him the game ball for his performance and just the consistency during the time he's been filling in for Chris Boswell. I am interested to see, though, because Boz can come off IR. He's eligible. Coach said that's something he's going to wait until later in the week to make that decision. Also, William Jackson III. So I don't know. Tucker versus Boswell, Matthew Wright. Yucky weather. Who knows who the kicker for the Steelers is going to be. But as you said, field position is huge always in this matchup.
Well, you would think, you know, obviously the choice would be Boswell if he's healthy because of what he's been able to do, but he's also hasn't kicked in a while. And Matthew Wright has 10 in a row. So even though that seems like a no-brainer decision, you know, if Boswell has issues, then, you know, if he's struggling a little bit, whatever the case, all week in practice, then you may defer to go to. It's a nice problem to have, I suppose, but you'd like to get Boswell back in there. The other thing we should mention in special teams is what Presley Harvin did. He wasn't called upon to do much until the end of the game. And boy, he pinned them down, set up the final interception by Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, didn't have to punt until the fourth quarter. But yes, that one that pinned Atlanta down on their two, setting up Minkah's interception, as you said, just textbook perfect. You could just see just that entire unit. And of course, special teams, Danny Smith, coach, he is always animated. But for Presley, that was huge and something that they needed, not knowing what was going to happen next. There was still time on the clock, and you can never say never.
I thought on the interception, too, Cam Hayward did a really good job pushing up the middle, forcing Marcus Mariota to throw the ball, and he threw it into coverage, and Minkah Fitzpatrick did a good thing by intercepting, but also ran out of bounds and, you know, basically killed any attempt that Atlanta could have. But it's the play that sealed the game, and there was the pressure. Well, he can read that. I think he knew what Mariota was trying to do.
Oh, yeah. Minkah's one of those, you know, heads-up guys, watches a lot of film, just how fast and what a blur he was as he caught that and ran out of bounds. He definitely knew what was happening there, but for him to, you know, go out of bounds, a lot of people, as you said, you know, fantasy owners disappointed not getting the pick six. I think Minkah's had enough pick sixes, and he said after the game he was tired and didn't want to have to go back out on the field. Plus, you never know what can happen, even though that would have been a very comfortable cushion in terms of a lead with that.
Yeah, a lot of guys would have taken it in just for their own personal stuff, but he that's a heads-up play on his part. And he said on his tweet, for your fantasy owners, sorry, not sorry. We're going to take a break, come back to wrap up the program, and look ahead to the game again on Sunday, 1 o'clock at Acrisure Stadium, right after this.
Welcome back to Ford Truck Talk. Today we're looking at the new F-150.
The official truck of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow, did you see that lane change?
Another smooth play by the F-150 with great execution of that parallel park job.
Absolutely stunning.
Newcomers, take note.
And now you too can win this Ford F-150.
Professional, show-stopping, built Ford tough. But we shouldn't expect anything else from the best-selling trucks in Pittsburgh.
I think it's the next progression of the offense, turning those threes into seven, so you don't have to sweat it out at the end there.
Oh yeah, for sure. We just gotta keep working, you know, focus on the little details. You know, not hurt ourselves with penalties. You know, just keep playing. We're gonna keep getting better, and it's gonna continue to show.
How nice is it to finally get two straight for this team? You know, especially heading into that Ravens game.
It's big. We needed it. Because obviously we're still trying to win out the rest of the season, and you know, hopefully we get a chance again in the playoffs or whatever we can. So we just focus on one game at a time, and like I said, we're not giving up yet. So, like I I say, just getting these 2 wins just gives us more confidence.
You talked about turning 3s into 7s. That one drop that you had, did you just take your eyes off of it?
Yeah, just looked up the field and looked back. The ball was in a different spot, but I'm not making no excuses. I got to catch the ball in that moment, so.
Surprising. I know we talked about it after the game last week, and you guys talked about stacking wins. It was the first time you guys won 2 straight games. How does that feel heading into a big division game next week?
It's huge. It's huge, but like you said, with win or loss, you have to have a short memory and get back in the lab. And like you said, with a divisional opponent this week, it's going to be a good one. Hopefully everybody back home will bring the juice.
Do you like the way the defense played today?
I mean, it's too soon to tell. Obviously, we gave up some chunk runs there, some bigger plays in the second half, so we're going to have to go back, watch the film, and see where we can get better.
How much was it getting them into uncomfortable down defenses, taking that run game away that allowed you guys to have the success that you did?
Yeah, that was the big goal all week was to get them behind the chains, which is hard to do for a team that sticks to the run. We knew even in the red zone they love to run the ball, even on 3rd down. So we never really got to a point where we could truly pin our ears back until the last play. But overall, happy with the win more than anything.
TJ, were you surprised they didn't run more in the first half? I mean, that's what they like to do.
I don't know. I mean, every team plays games differently. They do one thing through all the way leading up to a game, and you think they're going to stick to what they do, and then all of a sudden they play us, and it seems to change a little bit. So you can never really be surprised.
By the time this Steelers fan is finished drinking his Pepsi, you'll be 15 seconds closer to game time. Steelers watching. Better with Pepsi.
Welcome back, everyone. Here are some injuries to keep an eye on this week when players resume practice here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. Chuks Okorafor injured his shoulder during the game in Atlanta. He was able to go back in. TJ Watt dealing with the ribs. Still, he said after the game they were killing him, and Larry Ogunjobi also probably will get some limited time as well with a toe injury that he was dealing with last week. But this is not as long of a list as we have seen in previous weeks, so we are towards the end of the season and not too bad.
Well, you got to give TJ Watt a lot of credit, I think, Missy. I mean, he hasn't put up statistical numbers since he's come back, but I mean, he's dealt with a pec, he's dealt with a knee, now ribs, and he's out there. And I think the mere presence of him on the field makes you, as an offense, you got to account for him. So even if he may not be the same game record that you would expect when he's fully healthy, he still has a massive impact on the game. Yeah, and they said on the CBS broadcast he was wearing a rib protector for the first time as well. You could see at one point when he came off the field, he did appear to be under pain, but TJ's one of those guys, as Coach said, better to say whoa than sick 'em. In terms of TJ, sometimes you have to protect TJ from TJ. One guy you have to watch out for on the Ravens defense, they made a trade to get Roquan Smith, when the Bears were trading people left and right. He's made a big difference to them. And, inside part of the game, it affects people like Pat Freiermuth, who goes in the middle of the field, much like Mark Andrews affects people in the middle of the field on the Steelers defense. So you got to be aware of Roquan Smith. Absolutely, and even just their secondary. Marcus Peters, there's a number of guys, they like their turnovers. There's been 20 takeaways, 11 of them have been interceptions. So you want Kenny Pickett to continue the streak of no interceptions in the second half of the season. Well, we can tell you that this should be one heck of a game. And again, it's the first of 2 coming up. It'll be the next to last game of the year down in Baltimore. I think that's on New Year's Day, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then it's Cleveland after that to end the season. So these are 3 divisional games coming up. It's funny because of the injuries, the point spreads have switched around too. The Steelers are now favored in this game. I think most people expect Lamar Jackson not to play, but again, John Harbaugh won't rule that out. So it's one of those things that, coaches like to play a little gamesmanship along the way. Why not? You do it today, then the Steelers have more time to formulate a plan, leave it out there, dangle the carrot. It's Ravens week. I'm not surprised. Not surprised. And what should be surprising is anything but a 9-6, 12-9, one-possession game. It's that close every time these guys play. The Steelers have won the last 4 with Chris Wormley on their side of the football. That's going to do it for us. For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Have a good game, good week, and we'll see you next week.